What is up, YouTube? James Baek here, and today we're going to go over my win and in set for the Players Cup 4 regional qualifiers. This is to get into the regional finals. Me and Alex are facing off in a 6-2 record fashion in round 9 of Swiss. Whoever wins this moves on to have a high chance of making it to the regional finals. And yeah, we're going to be facing one of my nemesis, the Venukoal, Grimmsnarl, Moltres, Entei, Rotom-Wash, Porygon 2, and Metagross, my team as always. And we're gonna be facing Sun, and I have complained about Venusaur even before Gen 8. So yeah, this is gonna be an interesting one. I knew that at the top of my head. This is actually one of a couple of Sun teams I faced. I think I faced like 2 or 3 at this point. So my opponent's got Indeedee with Goggles, Life Orb, Defiant Thundurus, Assault Vest, Landorus, Varian, the Charcoal Torkoal with Eruption, I think it was Eruption, Burning Jealousy, Earth Power, Protect, Shucka Berry, Sack Attacker with Body Press, no Protect, Trick Room, and Venusaur with Cobra Berry. I think this Venusaur had Sleep Powder, Protect, but I don't remember if it was Protect or Earth Power, but I know for a fact it has Sleep Powder and had Cobra Berry. So yeah, debating on the lead here. I usually lead Grimmsnarl Entei against most Sun teams, but since Stack Attacka is something that is actually a factor in this matchup, it does change the matchup a little bit differently. So Stack Attacka is an annoying Pokemon because Stack Attacka, Dynamax next to Torkoal and Trick Room can really obliterate my team if I'm not well prepared for it. I don't want to bring Grimmsnarl because even though screens help me with that, the thing is I have a less backup plan if things go wrong against the Venusaur with Sleep Powder, or like RNG with like Rock Slide and things. So I felt like I'd rather leave the RNG behind and try to focus on having more backup plans in case like it got really ugly with Venusaur Sleep Powder and Stack Attacker Rock Slide flinches. So I'm gonna lead off with my Entei and Metagross, which I felt like was my strongest lead against, like, it was a good mid-ground lead because I felt like it was okay against Venusaur Torkoal lead, as well as I felt it was pretty good against the Indeedee plus the Stack Attacker lead, which I felt like were the most likely option to lead. And it's also good against Thundurus Incarnate, which also changes the matchup because I can't really lead Moltres against the Sun team here because the factor is that Thundurus Incarnate is threatening the Moltres. So I felt like it was a pretty good lead because Metagross is a pretty good Pokemon against most of these 6 except the Torkoal specifically. So gonna lead Entei, Metagross versus Indeedee and Venusaur, and this is gonna be I knew that this is gonna be a fun one because I knew Sleep Powder was coming out, and yeah, it's not gonna be fun. So I didn't think my opponent would go hard into Thundurus here, which is an option, but it's like super greedy. I don't even know my opponent has Thundurus, so I'm gonna go for the Snarl right away. And in case the Thundurus is a Pokemon that my opponent decides to switch out to, I am gonna Rock Slide to cover that because Rock Slide and Snarl should put in E-Speed range afterward, and it would most likely not want to Dynamax after taking all that damage. And yeah, there's also covered Torkoal coming in, I thought was pretty nice. If Sleep Powder comes out, I get good damage on the Torkoal, which I felt was nice, and chip damage on the Venusaur to maybe put in range of the Airstream from my Moltres after Dynamax is over through the Cobra Berry, or Sacred Fire just to KO maybe after the Dynamax or Gigantamax. So the Torkoal comes out here for the Indeedee for a fast Sleep Powder, and the Sleep Powder does come out in Metagross. I think they were expecting maybe a Bulldoze here in Metagross to maybe Dynamax and go for an attack right here. But yeah, I end up going for a Snarl here. Metagross take its first turn of sleep. And this is a pretty good position because of the fact that both of these Pokemon are -1 special attack now, and they are not nearly as threatening as before. With my Assault Vest Entei, it is going to be able to sponge up attacks very nicely, especially from the Torkoal. So here, I'm going to go for a Sacred Fire on the Venusaur because I know Sleep Powder is going to come out because my opponent doesn't have a better option. And I'm going to go into Porygon 2 because Porygon 2 can sponge the attacks. And again, Metagross is really important in this matchup. I need to keep it healthy. It's really important to deal with Stack Attacka or potentially Thundurus, but I was thinking more Stack Attack in the back. So Porygon brings the download boost for the special attack, which is pretty nice because again, it's a guarantee to a KO on most Torkoals, and since this one's offensive, should always get a 2 KO, especially with the Snarl chip. Sleep Powder does connect 2 out of 2 as Eruption comes out, and this is where it got ugly because my opponent also scored a crit onto my Porygon 2, which is a really bad crit here. That crit basically puts me potentially in range of Venusaur attack from a Leaf Storm. So yeah, that's really bad for me. Extremely bad for me. So I have to risk my Porygon 2 here. I can't afford to switch out. I'm gonna go for the recover option, and I am gonna Sacred Fire. I basically gotta hope for something to go right. Hopefully Sacred Fire knocking out the Venusaur is pretty nice here, as my opponent switches out the Torkoal into Thunders, trying to catch a Snarl, it seems. So and to reset the special attack, because Torkoal is my opponent's really only answer to the Metagross at this point. And my opponent went for Sleep Powder, which I was really surprised. 3 for 3. But yeah, Sacred Fire into Venusaur is able to pick up a knockout. Thankfully, I got a first turn Wake. I was really surprised about the Sleep Powder because I felt like it was a super risky play. But I guess since my opponent was risking hitting a move anyway, I guess my opponent felt like might as well just go for Sleep Powder because it buys him turns if Porygon does stay asleep long enough. So Entei going to come out here, and this is a position where I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So my first thought is Expanding Force here plus Airstream coming out from the Thundurus. I don't know how fast the Entei is, but it has to have some decent speed in order to outspeed my Entei, which I thought was pretty unlikely here. So I'm like, okay, should I max Entei or should I just go for Sacred Fire? I felt like the play was the Sacred Fire here and go Moltres, because even though I know Entei goes into Airstream plus Expanding Force, I'd rather just go for the Sacred Fire chance, because I felt like I was going to outspeed the Entei after a Airstream, and that it didn't matter if I maxed the Entei, because Airstream into a Helping Hand Airstream most likely knocked out my Entei anyway, because the Thundurus is Life Orb. So I felt like, okay, there's really no point, I think, in that. I think it's just better to take the damage off and hope that like Metagross wakes up, or maybe Moltres can Dynamax to win the end game. So that's what I'm thinking. The Thundurus does Dynamax this turn and does go for the Airstream as anticipated, and the Entei, as we can see, did go for the Expanding Force here, because you don't want Porygon to get, I think you don't want Porygon to like recover, because that could really hurt my opponent later on. So we do see that the Life Orb hits, Sacred Fire does come out, hits, no burn, which is fine. I got a big, beautiful amount into Thundurus, and Expanding Force is able to knock on my Entei, but this is still a pretty good spot. One turn of Dynamax burnt. Entei does go down, but that's like a very favorable trade for me. Now I get a free switch into Metagross here. Metagross has taken one turn of sleep already, and Rock Slide can bypass the Follow Me. So Rock Slide can come out, do a lot of damage into this Thundurus here if we wake up, which is always a key question here. And Moltres is threatened. I felt like Rock Slide here and switching into Porygon is a very general safe play, because Helping Hand Max Lightning should knock out Metagross. I think you might go for it into the Moltres this turn potentially, because Moltres is a pretty big threat, because Thundurus is your only really big Moltres answer right here. So I decide I'm going to go into Porygon 2 to take the Dynamax attack, because the next turn I have a chance to max guard if I really need to. The only way I think I really get punished is a Knuckle play here from the Thundurus, which I felt like was super unlikely here. And if you did go for Knuckle, I just hope that Metagross wakes up and gets the Rock Slide off at that point. So Porygon 2 comes out, gets the attack download boost, which doesn't really matter too much, as Follow Me came out, which I was a little bit surprised about, because I was most likely going for spread moves. Maybe my opponent thought I was going to max here, but I thought if you predict the max, you're going to go for the Helping Hand. So yeah, here comes the Max Lightning though into Porygon 2. Is able to pick up a knockout. Terrain change really doesn't matter, just as long as Thundurus isn't able to abuse that terrain, thankfully. My Moltres will survive a Helping Hand Max Lightning. Or no, it won't survive a Helping Hand Max Lightning, but it will survive a Helping Hand Wild Charge, which is what I'm planning for here, because I felt like at this point I think it's the best play to Dynamax my Moltres right here, because Metagross took its second turn of sleep. If it takes a third turn of sleep, and then I'm in trouble. So I felt like, all right, if I protect Moltres, then I protect Metagross, because theoretically I can max Metagross too, but I was a little bit worried about like Torkoal critting potentially. So I felt like at this point I can max guard the Moltres, because I felt like Helping Hand plus Max Lightning should be coming out into the Moltres slot at this point. And yeah, that's basically all I'm assuming. If you go for it into Metagross, again, I do survive. It's not that big of a deal. And it looks like Thundurus would go down to Wall Charge if it goes for Wall Charge. And I think I do survive Helping Hand Wall Charge from what I'm calculating in my head. So yeah. So I'm pretty much like, okay, I should survive a Wild Charge Helping Hand. Then the Thundurus would go down. And then I could maybe knock out the Entei, because the Entei is in Culver. Or is it Cassiva or Culver? I think it's Culver. That's the Dark Berry. So Moltres Dynamax here. This is a pretty important turn potentially, as this can really be really big is with Metagross. So max guard here from the Moltres. If this is a max attack in the Metagross, it makes the game harder, but should still be winnable. We do see a Follow Me come out from the Entei again, which I'm again really surprised about, but it still ends up working fine for me. Max Lightning comes out into the Moltres, which I'm like, okay, I do survive, and the Metagross is unfortunately taking 3 turns of sleep, but it's completely fine at this point. So yeah, the survival with the max guard is super clutch here, because now what I can do here is I can Rock Slide here, and I can go for a max Airstream. And the reason I'm going to go for this play, I think I could have went for max Darkness, but I felt like in case Entei went for a really greedy Protect here, but I didn't think that was the case. I think Helping Hand was coming out here, and Wild Charge was coming out, which is completely fine for me at that point. As Thundurus is, yeah, as I expected, went down to the recoil, and now I would go for the Airstream here. I have a Berserk boost because of the fact that I took so much damage, and I thought this +1 Airstream would knock out the Entei, but like I knew from a fact anyway that my Metagross was guaranteed waking up, and as long as I hit Rock Slide, I am able to knock out the Entei. If I don't, it's fine still anyway, because of the fact that I can still go for next turn Protect max guard, and then Fiery Wrath into a Stomping Tantrum and hope that picks up a knockout, or I could Rock Slide if I don't think that's going to pick up a knockout, and try to flinch the Torkoal. But the Torkoal did have a little bit of chip from Snarl, so that's basically what my thought process was at the time. Torkoal does come out here as the last mon, as I was able to knock out Entei. Thankfully, Metagross was able to connect, and that just makes the job a lot easier. So I am going to be able to go for a Stomping Tantrum to guarantee it, and max Darkness. If Torkoal protects, that's fine, because -1 Spadef, like you'll be taking shift damage to protect, and then Fire Wrath is even more powerful because of the fact that you're -1 Spadef from the Darkness. And yeah, Torkoal goes down just in one shot anyway. So amazing. That was amazing, because I was able to fight back even through 3 Sleep Powder misses, a 3-turn sleep, and a crit on Porygon, which was pretty crucial. I was still able to pull it off, which I was like very happy about. And yeah, as I said before, having backups were really nice here in case again things go wrong, and with Venusaur things can always go wrong. So like my game 2, I pretty much was expecting the Sakataka this time. Like I thought Sakataka was better than the Thundurus, but it's definitely a potential option to go Thundurus again. But I wasn't sure, but I did want to prepare for Sakataka, because again, I felt like the scariest option my opponent has was having Sakataka next to Torkoal in Trick Room, having powerful max moves to basically put too much pressure on my Porygon 2, and then just sweeping me under Trick Room. So I felt like I was going to lead the same thing again, because if I expected Sakataka into the lead, it was just really good. And again, Entei plus Metagross is a very good mid-ground lead against everything, because it can pretty much, like Metagross does well against everything that isn't the Torkoal, and Entei can help slow down the Torkoal, and I have pivots to deal with the Torkoal as well. So yeah. And you have, if you're leading Sakataka, you have to lead Entei here, or Bulldoze plus Max Quake is just an option that just absolutely destroys the Sakataka turn 1 and would absolutely crush right here. So yeah, it seems like a pretty straightforward. I didn't think I was going to bring Grimmsnarl, and even though Rotom-Wash could theoretically do well, I felt like Venusaur was a bit too annoying, and I wasn't going to max Rotom-Wash, I felt like, in this game most likely, as well as I was a little bit worried about how much damage I was doing through Geyser. I don't break through Entei with Rotom, and yeah, Venusaur, Thundurus, and Entei just make it annoying for Rotom-Wash, which is why I didn't bring it for anyone who thought that Rotom-Wash could be decent. It's not a bad Pokemon in this matchup, because of course there are 3 water weaknesses, and setting up the rain helps counteract the Torkoal. But for me to do damage, I feel like I need at least 1 nasty plot up. Venusaur is always going to be an annoying Pokemon to probably play against, and you know, even if I don't max Rotom-Wash, I have to hit Hydro Pumps, which is like really annoying. So I decided not to bring Rotom-Wash and just go with the 4 that I felt like had the best matchup overall, because the Moltres was a good backup to the Venusaur if Entei wasn't able to provide against it. So we're gonna go into game 2 here. Venusaur Torkoal lead, and I'm like, okay, here we go. It's time for the gambles now. My opponent's hit 3 Sleep Powders and has hit all 3 of them. Sleep Powder is a 75% accurate move. I'm up a game, so I have room to take risk here. So I decide, okay, I am going to go for Sacred Fire, and I am going to go for a Rockfall and a Torkoal. because there are a few things that could happen. One, Torkoal could stay in, go for an eruption. Like this could be like sleep powder into the Metagross and a eruption right here, which would be kind of annoying. Or it could be like a Thunder swap here. I think if the Venusaur protects, I don't remember Venusaur protect, because I remember for some reason also thinking that Thunders could come in, like Venusaur next to Thunders would be really annoying. So I think I just don't remember it protect, because I felt like I made this play because of the fact that I had a sneaky suspicion about Thunders for some reason. But yeah, that was what I was thinking at the time. So Entei comes out here to swap for the Torkoal, which is fine for me here. And this is most likely sleep powder because of the fact, or protect if it was protect, but again I don't remember. So I unfortunately don't even have, I didn't write the moveset for the Venusaur in my notes. So I did have the team sheet at the time, but I don't have access to it now. So Metagross does Dynamax here, and I'm up a game. Math, please don't fail me. But yeah, always rely on math, because math is right, as we are able to knock out the Venusaur to a Sacred Fire, as dodging the sleep powder finally. I don't like finally. But Rockfall does come out to Entei. I'm able to eliminate a huge annoying Pokemon from my opponent's side, because sleep powder is just, I don't have to fight it anymore. I don't have to fight it anymore, and that's amazing for me, because Venusaur sleep powder pressure was probably the biggest way my opponent actually like slowed down my team, and now I'm in a phenomenal position. Even if it's Thunderous, if it's Sack Attack, I'm in a good position. Sack Attack does reveal itself here, and yeah, as I anticipated, I originally thought I was going to go for Bulldoze and potentially just max Quake here, but I felt like that isn't exactly that great, because I remembered about the Torkoal next to Sack Attack when I thought about it. Entei's probably going to follow me here, and the Trick Room is going to come out. So I'm like, okay, how do I prepare for that? So the play here for me, I think, was to go Porygon 2 here, as I thought Porygon 2 could probably survive the Dynamax move from Sakataka and an Eruption after I max Quake boost here. So I go for a max Quake here into Sakataka in case of a greedy Entei protect, but Entei's not doing much damage here anyway, and if Entei stays on the field, it doesn't really matter too much at the end of the day, because of the fact, you know, it isn't doing anything to my team. So Porygon 2 does come out, able to get a download boost for special attack, as the Entei is going to go for the follow me here, and I was completely fine with Entei going for follow me, as Entei was going to go down this turn, and I'm able to get a special defense boost. So now there's only two things that could screw me: a really hard read, which I felt like was super unlikely, because I felt my opponent was going to try to get as much offensive pressure as possible, because they're down 4-2, and all my Pokemon are healthy, like really healthy. The most damage I've taken has literally been the sand chip that's coming out this turn. So I felt they had to get offensive pressure most likely. So they were probably going to Dynamax, I felt like, this upcoming turn, and probably go on the offense here. So Torkoal comes out, and the reason I went for the max Quake here in the Porygon 2 play is because of the fact, again, I think I lived a double up from the Torkoal plus Stack Attack and Dynamax attack into the Porygon, but also that Metagross with Dynamax and a +1 special defense boost does survive the eruption here. So basically now I just got to pray for no crits. Crits would devastate me here. So yeah, I'm going to go for Max Quake here in the Sakataka, and I am going to go for the reverse Trick Room here. The only way I get screwed here is if Sakataka reverses Trick Room and Torkoal goes for an eruption and crits my Metagross. But here, this is a really interesting scenario, is the Torkoal Dynamax, which is not what I was expecting. I really thought Stack Attack was going to Dynamax. Body Press comes out, and my opponent tries to go for a single target Max Flare, which is more powerful than Eruption in Porygon 2 than Spread, but it doesn't knock out because I got the special defense increase. I'm able to get a Max Quake off into the Stack Attacker right here, which is going to boost my special defense even further with Porygon 2 and the Metagross, and then next turn I get a guaranteed knockout on Stack Attacker since it's 8 is Shucket Berry. Even though my Dynamax is over, Stomping Tantrum will be able to knock out the Stack Attacker, and I would be able to recover Porygon 2. And even if like a bunch of crits happen at this point, it shouldn't really matter in the end game right now. The reason is because of the fact that Stack Attacker has no protect, so it cannot protect itself from Stomping Tantrum, which will guarantee the knockout right here into the Stack Attacker slot, and recovering the Porygon 2 is very safe here, and my opponent can only target one Pokemon with the Torkoal slot. So at the end of the day, I had pretty much nothing to lose here by going for this very safe play to deny Trick Room and hopefully just seal up the game right here. So Stomping Tantrum does come out into the stack attacker, is able to finish off that stack attacker, and it feels real good. As you saw, I was pretty happy during the live stream as Porygon is able to go for the recover here, and basically I'm just recovering to try to stall out the Dynamax turns, because Torkoal is going to have a really tough time of breaking through Porygon 2. That is at +2 special defense with the Violite. This Pokemon's insane, as Max Flare actually did knock out the Metagross, which I was a little bit surprised, but yeah, it didn't really matter in the long run. So Entei here, because I want to stall out the Dynamax here, I can go for Snarls here. It doesn't even matter if I really miss them, because of the fact that they're single. Like, I have multiple opportunities to just get attacks off anyway, and the Torkoal has its last Dynamax turn, and then Moltres with Fiery Wrath will do way too much damage to Torkoal. I can start bulldozing, but yeah, I was gonna forfeit, and I'm able to pick up the win on this set, this game 2, win the set, and move on to 7-2. And yeah, for anyone who didn't know, spoilers, I already moved on to the regional finals of the Players Cup 4 tournament. And I felt like I played pretty well throughout the set. I felt like, yes, I did gamble on the turn 1, but when I'm up a game, I felt like it was a very reasonable gamble, especially since it was like, you have to miss a sleep powder eventually, right? You hit too many of them. So yeah, that was the winning set of my Players Cup adventure. I hope everyone enjoyed it. The next games that will be coming up are my regional final games. If you did enjoy it, let me know in the comments down below. Leave a like down below if you would like to try my team for some reason, because there is still Series 9 ladder still available. You could go try it out, link in the description down below. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, I was very excited to actually do well in one of these tournaments. But yeah, as always, if you haven't already, check out my social medias down below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, really does help me out. You can check out my Twitch channel. As I said before, I live stream this, and I do live stream VGC as well as like Nuzlocke and some other stuff. And yeah, hope that everyone enjoyed. Have a great day, people, and until we battle again, I'll see y'all later.